Welcome back from that short break. Thank you for staying with us. 65 years on, the question of Nigeria's economy remains unresolved. We've depended on oil for decades, while diversification and industrialization lag behind. Now, what lessons have we learned from independence and where are we headed? Joining us this morning and me to discuss this is Dr. Ajisefinni Ayodeji virtually. He's an agribusiness and an MSc expert. And in the studio here with me is Richardson, Ojeka, an economic and business analyst. He equally is into a non-profit for youth. Now, they'll be breaking down the past, the present, and future of Nigeria's economy. Now, let's get to that conversation. I want to take you down memory lane and look at the history of Nigerian economy, and we'll start off in 1960. Now, post-independence and agricultural base. At independence, exactly in 1960, agriculture was the backbone, contributing over 60% of GDP and 70% of exports, which is cocoa, palm oil, granules, cotton, and rubber. Nigeria's first national development plan focused on infrastructure, education, and industrial growth under import substitution. Now, the Biafran Civil War happened, that's 1967 to 1970, disrupted trade and production, especially in the East, and stalling growth. We go to the 1970s, the oil boom and agricultural decline. All this curve has actually happened before independence in 1956, and matured into a dominance after the 1973 oil price surge. Nigeria became a major OPEC player. Massive oil revenues, funded infrastructure, urban growth, and the indigenization decree is making of Nigerianization of businesses. However, Nigeria agriculture collapsed, and we started importing food. Now, agricultural initiatives like NAFP and the Green Revolution were launched but failed to reverse decline. By the late 1970s, falling oil prices exposed the economy's dependence on crude oil. Let's go over to the 80s. Let's see what's happening there. Oil price crash and the structural adjustment. In the early 1980s, global oil glut, cost recession, mounting debt, inflation, and unemployment. Nigeria pursued import substitution industrialization between 1960 to 1986, but inefficiency and reliance on imports persisted. Now, in 1986, the famous structural adjustment program under General Babangida with IMF and World Bank, which brought about the Naira devaluation, trade liberalization, privatization, and subsidy removal. Now, the SAP liberalized the economy, but deepened hardship, industries collapsed, inflation soared, poverty widened. We're coming closer now to the 1990s. Over there, we have instability and economic stagnation. There was a military rule under Babangida and Abacha, brought about corruption, sanctions, and capital flight. Oil dominated exports, but revenues were mismanaged. And there were some reforms by like the CBN 1991 decree, modernized finance, but instability undermined gains. And of course, in 1999, we returned back to democracy under President Obasanjo, marking a turning point for economic reforms. Let's now go to the 2000s, where we had the debt relief and banking reform. Now we had the persistent, oil recovery boosted revenues. GDP growth was about 6%. Now, of course, we had the debt relief that took place at in 2005, the Paris Club debt relief. We cleared about $18 billion in debts and easing fiscal pressure. The banking consolidation again happened, another reform where it raised minimum capital base to 25 billion naira, creating stronger banks. And of course, in that time, we had the likes of telecoms coming on board, Nollywood going bang, and all that happening. So everything happened. Let's go to the 2010s. Now, there was a strong growth between about 6 to 7%, growth annually, driven by telecoms, services, agriculture, and there was now an oil price crash in 2014, which cut revenues drastically. Now, 2016 was our recession, the first one in 25 years, hit due to FX shortages, high inflation, unemployment, and of course, we know the very, very popular and border closure that happened in 2019. It was aimed to boost local production, but however raised inflation. And of course, in 2014, we rebased our GDP and now made us Africa's largest economy. Now let's come to the 2020s where the pandemics took place. Now in the 2020, there was the COVID-19 pandemic and oil price collapse triggered another recession. Recovery came via agriculture, ICT and services, persistent FX shortages and naira devaluation hurt businesses. Now, currently under our current administration of 2023, we see there's bold reforms have been introduced: full subsidy removal, FX market unification. Of course, these in itself triggered inflation and cost of living crisis. We had a lot of stories on that back to back in that time, but they were aimed at a long-term fiscal stability. Now, of course, non-oil growth drivers, fintech, digital economy has shown resilience. And if you remember, on the Business Study program, we talked about the fact that, in this year alone, non-oil has generated more revenue for us than even oil itself. What are our challenges? What are those things that we're going through? Those are the things that we have been through since 1960 till 2025, 65 years of our economy. And the question mostly is, where are we now? How are we going forward? Are we really, truly independent economically? Now, here with me, Richardson, you've heard me reel out these numbers, talking about all these things that we've been through. And if you can recall from, our introduction and what we've all heard about, although we were not there, 1960s agriculture, we had the ground-up pyramids, we had all these great things, and somehow we're here now, and it's like we're trying to revive that again. Do you think that we've done so well from 1960 till now?
I think that we've done so well in terms of the resilience of the people. Yeah. Because if you look at all this history, one of the things you find is that there's been a lot of volatility. But also there's been a counter-resilience of the people. The ability of Nigerians to withstand all these different changes from the military regime to the democratic regime, up until now, is second to none. Do I think that we can do better? Yes, of course. There are a lot of opportunities. There were many times where there were a lot of mismanagement, corruption, maladministration, and which should have been boycotted, which have been reduced to ensure that the countries and the resources are spent better. But yes, all in all, I think that the resilience of the people throughout all these economic times, the ups and downs, is really, really commendable as a people.
Okay, so you've heard Richardson. Dr. Ajisefinni has joined us virtually. Doctor, good morning. Can you hear us?
Happy independence to us in Nigeria.
Good morning.
Good morning, and happy independence to us all.
Thank you. Where are you joining us from this morning? I know you're up and about the country doing quite a lot. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us from Ilorin, Kwara State this morning. Now, you are an agribusiness expert, and I'm sure you have quite a lot to say, to unpack with this, how we've moved from an agricultural-based economy in 1960 to now where we're trying to revive that. What's your take on that?
Sincerely speaking, diversifying, moving away from agri to oil-driven economy is the cause of our problem in Nigeria. In the 60s, we are meant, according to history, that the source of livelihood in Nigeria was basically on agri. And all our forefathers were able to sustain and create what we are benefiting today. But discovery of oil in the 70s made us to leave it and diversify into oil solely. And that is the beginning of the crisis of Nigeria economy. Thank God we are going back to agri, because that is the natural work Almighty God gives to everybody when we are coming from heaven.
Okay, so now I'm still with you, Doctor. Now, during that time, we had regional, forms of agriculture. So, specialization in crops. We're used to some parts of the country having certain things. How did that in any way, help us economically? Where you could say we're going to be getting certain fruits from the north or certain things from the south. These things, did they play a major role in helping the country economically?
Very well. You remember we have the western region and the northern region. In the western region, cocoa was our major source of revenue, despite the fact we have others. And revenue generated through cocoa is what gave back to the first TV in Nigeria, is what gave back to the first radio station in Nigeria, is what gave back to free education in Nigeria. Look at it from the eastern part. They discovered palm oil. Look at how palm oil resources brought development into the eastern part of Nigeria. So also the northern part. Then each region has a predominant economic benefit of a product. And the then leaders believe so much in agriculture, believe in making our good made in Nigeria for Nigeria. And Nigeria was the best economy when we talk about agric in West Africa. But discovery of oil led our subsequent leaders to abandon it. All the good work that our forefathers have done before 70s in respect of agric. Look at it, we have farm settlements. During that region, there was nothing called food insecurity. We have abundance. Then we operate farm settlement, cluster system, and of taking of farm produce for export purposes. But today, agric was abandoned because of what? Discovery of oil. It was so impactful in the 60s. That's my take.
Okay, so I'm still staying with you because as the agri expert, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Ojeka. Now, do you think that agriculture could have still been dominant and stayed even as we without oil? Do you think we would have been able to maintain agriculture without oil?
Sincerely speaking, oil should be the secondary source of revenue in Nigeria. Agric has moved from agriculture to agribusiness. In every part, look at it, palm oil, kernel processing to palm oil, to soap. From single seed, a lot of revenue can be generated. A lot of employment can be generated. Look at cassava value chain. Look at soya value chain. Look at rice value chain. If our government see agric as a business, make it a mandatory economic growth center, it will have done better than oil. Look at our GDP. Look at the contribution of non-oil sector, what agriculture has contributed to export. And kudos to the present administration for the ban on exporting of our shea nuts. This has been the clamor, not only on shea nuts. There are some agricultural produce that we're supposed not to be sending out our raw materials to externals. Soya seed is one of it. We can generate enough workforce, enough revenue from soya processing here in Nigeria. Therefore, concentration on agric and the seed, look at it, give us great economic development in Nigeria and generate great work opportunities for our youth.
Okay, all right. Now to you, Ojeka. Do you think that agriculture would have still been dominant, if we hadn't found oil or moved over to the oil economy?
Thank you very much for that question. So there's a very interesting quote from Chinua Achebe in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria. And he said, the problem with Nigeria is simply and squarely a problem of leadership. And so it is not a problem of agriculture or oil or the dependence on oil. Okay. And so that's because a thief is a thief, whether he's getting the resources from oil or from agriculture. We have a problem of mismanagement, corruption, maladministration in this country. Nigeria is such a blessed country that we are able to have a lot of agricultural produces that can even sustain us as a nation. But hey, thank God that we also have oil. So if we had managed everything properly, would have been like an El Dorado right now. But I do not think that agriculture alone would have taken us to that place. I think that agriculture is great, it's beautiful. There are countries that just rely on agriculture, but we are even blessed now to even have other resources, such as oil. But there are even more other industries. We have the entertainment industry, which is also very promising. We have the culture and tourism industry, which is also very promising. We have the arts industry, which is also promising. We have a lot of opportunities as a nation to be self-reliant, to do very well. And I don't just think it's agriculture, but I agree that agriculture has a very strong potential to put us in that top place as a nation.
Okay, so let's go back a bit to 1967 and 1970, the Civil War that took place. Now, how do you think the impact it had on the Nigerian economy? How did it affect production and trade? For like 3 years, the country was in chaos. There was war happening. How did that impact production and trade?
Terribly, terribly bad. You know, war is, when I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, let's go into war, I'm like, you don't even know the devastating effect that war is going to cause on a nation. There was hunger at its peak. There was deprivation. Nations would not want to go into deals with a country that is at war because, of course, there's a lot of uncertainties. The Civil War put us. If we got independence and we were on the path of salvation as a nation, the Civil War had put us like 50, 70 years backward. And that was terrible. The Civil War allowed us as a nation not to be able to achieve and actualize our full potential.
But there's a country just here in East Africa that has somehow made it work for them, even though they had those issues, but they seem to have been thriving. So ours was in the 60s, that was just in 1994 here, and Rwanda seems to be thriving perfectly well. How are we not able to take whatever it is they've done and implement it here in Nigeria for our economy especially?
You're talking about Rwanda?
Yes, please.
Interesting. The complexities in Nigeria is very unique.
Okay.
How many tribes are in Rwanda? How many how many states, how many tribes do they have? How many tongues do they have? If you come to Nigeria, from my own state alone, we have more tribes than the entire Rwanda. So I must also applaud Nigeria that we have dealt with complexities very well. We have over 300 ethnic groups in Nigeria. It means that there are over 300 demands going on at the same time. So it's not going to be very fair on us as a nation to compare ourselves with people who do not have as much complexities as we have. But are there lessons to learn from Rwanda? Yes, a lot of lessons. For example, if you go to Rwanda and you mention your tribe, you're putting yourself in a very, very big
I heard they
tribalize
themselves over there.
Yes.
Okay, so let's come back to Nigeria here, talking about our economic journey so far from 1960. Let's go to the 1970s. Do you think that when the oil boom happened, that we squandered that opportunity?
Completely and squarely. We squandered the opportunity. It's like a kid in a candy shop. He's never experienced that type of thing before, and then he keeps picking all sorts of candy. We've squandered it tremendously, because a leader made a quote that we have so much money that we don't know what to do with it.
Okay. All right. Back to you, Doctor. Oil boom, 1970. Do you think that we could have handled that better and put us on the right track?
Well, just like what my brother in the house said, leadership. We have more than enough, but we don't know what to do with it. And that put everybody on the edge of, let me have my own shares. In the 70s, when oil was discovered, every other person closed their fights and concentrated on the revenue from oil. And that led us to where we are. That's my take. Discovery of oil and mismanagement of our resources, not planning for population increase. In the 1970s, we are talking about how many states do we have in Nigeria? Less than 20 states.
Okay.
From that less than 20, it became 19 states. We grew to 20-something states. Now we are 36 states. And look at the ethnics. Look at the number of local governments in Nigeria, 774 officially. All these were not planned for in the 70s when we have the oil boom. What they thought of was the present situation, present consumption. And that is what caused all this. No reservation for today.
Okay. So let's go to one thing that happened in the 80s and which we keep somehow putting the wool of the Nigerian economy on, which is the structural program that happened, the structural adjustment program that took place under the General Babangida's regime. Now, in that time, there were the issue of, oh, you have to devalue your naira, oh, you have to do this, oh, you have to do that. Now, quickly, do you actually think that the aim or whatever reason that was done was achieved, and did it impact Nigerian economy very well? Because I, for one, wonder why we had to devalue the naira at that point in time, and how has that helped us as a nation?
It's very interesting and complex at the same time, because we want to begin to ask, who were the technocrats in Nigeria at the time? Who were the persons advising the people in leadership? Were they yes men, or they were objective people? Because you have to always have advice. If the international organizations and international bodies are bringing policies to you, you need to have your own men that have your interests at heart. The devaluation of the naira it caused a lot of havoc. The structural adjustment program, I mean, according to a lot of analysts, is a sham. It was the worst thing that happened to Nigeria in the 80s, and we've still not recovered from it yet. So who were the people advising our leaders at the time? Who were the Nigerians? Who were the special advisors? And has that even changed today? If you go into government offices and you have the essays and all these people, are they objectively advising the leaders, or they are rubber stamping every decision that the leader is making? Because we must also realize that the leader is not infallible. He's not all-knowing. Sometimes confidence and notoriety might make him bring some policies, but it's the job of the advisors, it's the job of the people who are with the leaders to say, hey, this is not good in the long run, it's not good in the short run. So their structural adjustment program was a terrible project in the country, but who were the leaders? Who were the people close to them? What were they telling the leaders at the time?
Okay, Dr. Ajisefinni.
Thank you very much. Well, you know, there is what we call situational management. As at that period, why the military took over was because of mismanagement of our economy. Then, and the aim and objective of the structural adjustment program, which was recommended by our borrowers, that before we can support your economy, you need to go back home and restructure your program. Change your market from consuming market to market change your policy of your economy from being a consuming country to market country. You need to value your naira. These are their objectives. Just like the guest in the outset, who are the drivers of these policies? It has been an issue in Nigeria. We may have good policies, but the implementation is where the problem is. As at that period, I was not young. It's had its own positive impact. It changed our orientation. Because during military regime, before military regime, the level of indiscipline in Nigeria was so high. I was not a young boy during that period. When this issue of SAP comes in, it changed our style. It changed our psyche of there is SAP, don't spend anyhow, don't let government cash you. All this indisciplined attitude and reckless spending, yes, it gives room to more corruption, but it gives a rethink to we, the citizenry then, but the objective was not achieved because of the people in charge. Good policy, wrong set of people to implement.
Okay, now one of the things about the structural adjustment program was supposed to help reduce the over-dependence on crude oil, but as we have seen today, that seems to not have been the case, because we're still very much dependent. One of the programs we had here on Business Daily, we're talking about last week or so, we said that oil was still our major export in the last quarter, just last quarter here in 2025. So I guess that whole thing has not really worked. Now, you talked about military role. What brought about that was trying to manage the economy, help us get on track. Do you really think that the military coming on board had any impact in seeing that the Nigerian economy did well when they did actually come on board, Doctor?
Well, as we know, the military, their mandate is security and defense. They are not trained to be an economist. And that was why they engaged the technocrats. During the military regime, our economy was not that buoyant. The aim of restructuring and readjusting the economy was not part of their training. Therefore, do we blame them? Why are we civilians The yesers that were there were unable, fear of, I don't want to lose my job, unable to tell the truth on how it should be done. And that is why we are where we are. I will not blame the military. They came in to bring sanity to the country, not to the economy. The then economists, the then technocrats in that period, why didn't they do the right thing? They are afraid of being sacked of their job. That is my take. And whatever they advise the military, the khaki people, is what the khaki people wants to implement, because they have uniform community. Two different communities want to rule a country. And the one that has higher power is the uniform one, who use force. Military are not trained to manage the economy. They are trained to curate, to research and defend the country. Therefore, impact of military on our economy is not too palatable because of the people that worked with them then. Thank you.
Okay, so due to that military rule that we went to, and we see it happen again in current times when some countries go over to military rule, there's some sanctions that come, international sanctions, maybe from World Bank and all that. Now, the question is, how did that impact our economy at that time?
The military rule sanctions.
Yes, the sanctions that came from the international organizations, international company, maybe like we see in Russia, this Russia-Ukraine war now, we see what America is saying, oh, we're not going to buy, don't buy Russian fuel or anything. They sanctioned India, added more levy because they bought Russian fuel. So there's that kind of thing that happens when certain things happen. How do you think that impacted us as a nation?
Sanctions are meant to be like a bad omen for nations. But also it depends on the vision of the leader. Nations will go through different phases. And if you are a visionary leader, if you're a military leader, you go into a nation and you say, oh, despite knowing that you're going to be sanctioned, because of course the world is going through democracy, and then you're coming to say military era, what is the most important aim that you want to achieve? And so it comes down to the question of how clear is the vision of the leader? When you took over power as a military leader, what is your vision? What is your ambition? What are you trying to achieve? Are they clear? Are they spelled out? Are they understandable for the people and the masses? And so when you have some countries right now in Africa who have military leadership and the people are happy, they don't care about the sanctions. They don't even go to the international organizations events, but the people are happy because the people can see that there is a clear roadmap for them. Whether it's right or wrong is a question for posterity to answer. But there is a clear roadmap for them, and the people can see it, and they're happy. And which also brings down to a point, Thank you very much for the question of SAP. I'm almost bringing you back, but I'll proceed. You see, the biggest problem that we have in Nigeria, apart from leadership, is the problem of localization. We don't localize. And so we bring, we bring policies and different things, and then we bring them hook, line, and sinker. We don't even localize them. So why do I say this? We need to have our own SAP, Structural Adjustment Program, but localized. And what does this mean? If we are moving to oil because oil promises more and quicker revenues, what structure are we going to put in place to ensure that agriculture does not suffer? Are we thinking about these things? What structures are we going to put in place to ensure that other sectors do not suffer? Interestingly, Nigeria is capital and the mecca of a lot of other religions. If you go to the West, the religion that is practiced, Ifa is being worshipped and everything. Ifa is also worshipped in other countries. So people can come into Nigeria, people can come into Africa for religious tourism, and that is money. If you go to the East, where you worship all these other gods, is also worshipped in other countries. So Nigeria is also a mecca for a lot of other religions internationally. International tourism is there. There are a lot of opportunities for art. In Africa, when we do our art is not just for beautification in Africa. Art is a spiritual activity.
All right. Now, let's look at something else. We went to democracy in 1999. Do you think that the economy would have done much better if we had had democracy a lot earlier than 1999? Doctor?
Well, if you look at it, democracy wouldn't have changed because as at that time, it is obvious that the military are not ready to hand over the economy. It is the grace of God that brought in democracy in 1999. And what we suffered from 1999 is what we would have started suffering before 1999. But thank God, 1999 we have suffered, we have started it all over again. We are building the economy that is collapsed, that was collapsed. And to destroy is easy, to build is very, very difficult. But I won't subject I won't give a submission that if democracy is in place before 1999, maybe things would have been better. The same leadership that we started with is what would have been in place. Then, military changing to civilian with the same ideology. Then, the head of state was a military man, while the ministers are civilian. Is that democracy? It's pre-democracy. And that pre-democracy, look at what it gives to us. I wouldn't have said, I don't have a submission to say democracy would have been better before 1999 because of the set of people and the ambition of the people that were in charge then.
Okay, so when we eventually got to 1999 and had democracy, do you think that that in any way impacted expectations from both Nigerians and the international community? How did that actually play out for us?
One, from 1999, we have our own freedom of speech, freedom of expression, ability to criticize our leaders openly. That is number one benefit I can say we had. But economically, it has been bastardized. All those people that came in that time, you brought in 10 people. So out of the 10, 4 are on the same page, 6 are on another page. It brings the crisis of let's be managing ourselves. Look at how many times the Senate were unable to stable. Look at the leadership structure between 1999 to 2003. Leadership problem from one party to another party, from one Senate House to another Senate House, because all of them then have different vision and objective. They do not share the same prosperity of better Nigeria, rather to recover from their shocking setback of economy. And their reckless spending that period is what leads us to this stage of economy, borrowing to survive.
Over to you. Ojeka, do you actually think that the democracy, would have helped us? He's saying something that is quite nothing really changed. Either maybe yes, we could have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of whatever you teach. But then he's saying that although that came in, he had people not being on the same page. He had them down doing, okay, I could do this, I could do that. However, military rule, you better get on board. This is what we're going to do. So, do you think it actually really helped our economy?
I think that democracy is good, has the potency to be good, but what type of democracy would have helped us? A localized democracy, a democracy that is tailored for our people. And if you want to check it, which of the African countries that are practicing democracy is doing well? The country you had mentioned before, the last elections, the leader who won it had over 90-something%. Even in heaven, God didn't have 90% vote. Is that democracy? But hold on, I'm coming.
Have you been to heaven? Because I would like to ask if you...
According to the stories, they say that 1/3 of the angels defected.
Okay, all right.
They say, so you cannot have 90%. But if we're talking about development and growth as a nation, this democracy has not worked for us because it is not, we don't understand it. When the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. Do we understand how these systems work? So if the West is practicing it, if America is practicing it and it's working for them, how many languages are in America? How many languages do they speak in America? One. How many ethnic groups are there? How many languages do they speak
America
in
is a land,
Europe?
it's called no man's land. There's a lot of people in America from different walks of life. The Spaniards, the Mexicans, the Mexicans,
Official
rather.
language is English. And
Yeah, but
it's
our official
spoken.
language here too is English, if that's what we're saying.
But I'm very sure that if you go to the West and a leader is addressing these people in Yoruba, it's not going to be considered as wrong. Because we have our own native languages. And it's very important that we understand that there are differences, there are diversities, and there are complexities.
Okay.
So if we're going to bring a system of governance, we must bring a system of governance that inculcates the Easterners. The Easterners have a quite of an egalitarian system.
Okay.
How does it carry them along also? You go to the north, you have a different system, almost communal system. How do you carry them along? If you go to the west, if you go to the smaller tribes, the Edos, the Benues,
I don't think they like being called smaller tribes, but the other tribes of the country.
The other tribes,
yes.
If you go to the other tribes, there are a lot of complexities. And so we needed to sit down and say, this democracy they have given us, if we are going to practice it, how do we make sure that it's not demons crazy or crazy demo, like Fela would say? We need to localize it. We need to sit down and dissect it and make sure that it's carrying everybody along. Right now, what we have cannot work. It has proven over time that it will not work.
Okay, this is a business segment. When it comes to the political part of the conversation, I'm sure you could delve more into that. So let's go to what happened to us in the 2000s when we had that debt relief, the Paris Club debt relief. It was a big issue for us under the Obasanjo's regime, with, of course, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala sharing out that. Now, that was a turning point for us, really. Mm-hmm. Do you agree? Because that's what people say. Do you agree that that was a turning point for us, having most of our debt, if not all, cleared in 2005?
Very beautiful one. Very, very beautiful one. And I think that more debt should be cleared. As a nation, as a people, as Africans,
that's what the African countries are asking for at the UN meeting, and what they intend to ask for in G20 coming up later in the year. More debt relief. You think that that's what should be given to us as a country and as the continent, since you're going there?
Oh, of course, very, very importantly, we need more debt to be cleared as a country, and that's because even the interest rates are even funny. They're extremely high. We cannot afford to pay this debt, and we have not paid them. Kudos to the current government for clearing a lot of the debt that we have today, but we need more debt relief. Debt is like, a yoke that needs to be lifted off the nations so that we can have more freedom to industrialize. We need more freedom to build more industries for the people.
Okay, so Doctor, do you agree with what Mr. Ojeka here is saying about debt relief happening again for us? Because I'm thinking we had that in 2005. That is just 20 years ago. And somehow we've come back to being in debt again, even more than was cancelled for us. Do you think we actually need another debt relief? And would it actually help us from going a borrowing again?
Sincerely speaking, in line with him, having a debt relief will be a very good thing to us in Nigeria because the burden is high. The debt on Nigeria today is already for unborn generation. The best thing that can happen to us that will bring more investors is for us to have a debt relief that will give confidence to new investors into the country, and it will reduce the inflationary rate, create more job opportunity under a clause if it is well managed. If all the loopholes that will open up corruption will not come on. As we are getting an opportunity, we should look at the weakness and threat in it. Getting a debt relief from our overburdened one, thank God, just like my guest in the house said, the present administration have tried their best to settle it to some level so that they can have another one. But whatever that we are taking, there must be a justification for it. And what is the return? Another thing that we need to look into is when you are taking a debt, what is the prospect of repayment? Can that debt repay itself? We are taking debt to do our infrastructural development in Nigeria now. what revenue can we generate from that particular infrastructural development to be able to pay, if not 100% of it? And that will make me to say, most of the federal government infrastructure should be based on commercial basis, whereby the beneficiary should pay a token for the maintenance and sustainability of such infrastructure. I could remember during the era of paying toll gates, look at how our roads were well maintained by the partners. Look at what is happening in Nasarawa from Abuja or from Maraba to Lafia. How many toll gates can you calculate? Look at how they managed it. These projects were incurred and financed by debt. And look at the way the repayment will come in. Therefore, when we are asking for debt relief, we should look at debt management and the repayment plan. God will help us.
Okay. Our time is quite coming to an end, and we still have quite a lot to look into. So we're just going to move away from that segment of the country. Although I'm going to still be in that era, that's the 2000s era, of course, what the GSMs came into play. How did that affect our economy, Ojeka?
That's the introduction of the GSM was like a very big good news for the people, and that's because communication was easier. Both local and international communication was easier. And when you have communication eased for the people, it means that more trade will happen, more businesses will happen. People were traveling much more often. A lot of opportunities were open, for us as a nation. And so, yes, the introduction of the GSM was a really, really good breakthrough in the economic sector. And of course, it transformed into having internet access and all those things that we have today, and we are able to have a very wonderful doctor.
Yes. Having him join us virtually,
exactly.
I understand.
It was really, really good economically.
Okay, so now we based our GDP in 2014, and that made us, now we're now in the 2010 era, and that made us Africa's largest economy. First of all, that title, do you think it's actually, right for us to have it, bear it as a nation?
100%. 100%. Who else want to bear it?
Why? Minus the numbers that we have, what else makes us Africa's largest economy?
The numbers are the thing. The numbers is the most important thing, right? If you have a business and you're not in Lagos, you're joking. If you have any business in Nigeria, in Africa, and you're not in Lagos, you're still joking. The fintechs, whatever it is, the new technological programs. Nigeria is where the market is. We have the people, we have the number, we have the willingness to spend.
Sure that.
So that's important that we have the number, but let us not be deceived by that. It's now important for us to now use it as a motivation to do much more. We are doing a lot currently, especially in the technological space, but lots more needs to be done. To maintain the title, we shouldn't go and sleep on it. No, we have to do much more. But yes, do we deserve the title? It's not even the title, it's a thing, it's true.
It's fact,
It's a fact, exactly. It's a fact, yes.
Okay, now let's come back because of time. We're going to go to 2020s, and we have that whole thing in 2023 where the current administration did the subsidy removal, FX unification. We know the story so far that has come out of that. Doctor, how did that impact our economy? And do you think there would have been a better way to handle the situation way back in 2023?
Truth be told, as an entrepreneur, we can't continue living an artificial life. Nigerian government has been living an artificial life, borrowing to sustain an economy. You can't continue borrowing and be running a business in a deficit. Most of the businesses then were not getting their cost of operation right because of the subsidy that we are enjoying. Removal of subsidy has to impact on the national economy and on the individual. And I will categorize it that on the national economy of Nigeria, we need that removal come in place so that we should be able to get the actual cost of running a particular venture. We have not been running our business and actual costs. It's like government subsidizing cost of fertilizer. The fertilizer that's supposed to be 20 naira, collect it at 5 naira. You want to do the actual cost of your rice, you are using 5 naira. No, the impact, the negative impact of the subsidy is the hardship we are going through. And this hardship, to me, it affects me also, is for a short period. By the time we acclimatize in business, there is short-term plan, medium-long term, and long-term. The short-term plan, the administration announced it, we are going to go tough, but we never knew it will be as tough as this, especially for those that are in the agribusiness ecosystem and MSMEs. But look at it, we are getting out of it bit by bit. Investors are coming in, more people, more businesses are coming on board. But the issue of insecurity is one of the problem impact of fuel subsidy. All those legal sources of livelihood couldn't sustain it, and you see what we are going through. God help us.
Okay, so I'm going to go to one of the things. I'm going to take something that was said by the president today in his speech. Now, upon assuming office, our administration inherited a near-collapsed economy caused by decades of fiscal policy distortions and misalignments that had impaired real growth. Now, under this administration, we've seen another rebasing of the CPI, another rebasing of the GDP, and which now makes us look like we're doing well. Would it be said that we're still distorting things to make it appear that we're having real growth? I'm quoting what the president.
There is that accusation by a lot of people, but macroeconomics and microeconomics are not the same thing.
Okay.
It's very important for us as a people for the effect of all these policies, of all these changes that's happened in the past 2 years to trickle down to the people. Do I think that the sufferings that we're going through right now as a people is necessary? Yes, I think so, because there's no nation in the world that has industrialized that didn't go through a phase like this. There were even worse phases. Singapore, UAE, Russia, which of the countries do you want to name? China, they had gone through worse phases when they were trying to industrialize. The fear of the people is that there's no trust within the system.
Okay.
Do they trust that the government have altruistic, what do you call it? Motives, exactly, behind these economic policies? Do they trust that if in the next 20 years we're going to get better? Is there a promise for continuity? That's a question that only the future can answer. But I think that currently as a people, based on the facts and the figures that are coming from the reputable organizations, I think we're on the right track. The problem of trust and continuity has not been solved yet, so I hope that we solve it.
Okay, we've actually run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us, Richardson, Ojeka, sharing your insights on Nigeria's economy so far, 65 years on, and Dr. Ajisefinni. Thank you for joining us all the way from Ilori, giving us your time on the program this morning.
It's my pleasure.
All right, coming up at 11 o'clock, we have something lighter, something interesting, something to get your brain racking. It's our Independence Day trivia, so please don't go away. We'll be right back.